Tucked away in Central Florida is a small town where talking to the dead is a normal, everyday occurrence. I'm talking about Cassadaga, which is known as the psychic capital of the world. And Cassadaga isn't just a tourist trap. It has a long, strange, and surprisingly spiritual history that dates back over a century. So let's get into it. First, we're going to be talking about the origins of Cassadaga. Where the hell did this place come from? It was founded in 1894 by a man named George P. Colby, who was originally from New York. Colby said he was guided to the land by a spirit guide named Seneca, and if that's not creepy, I don't know what is. Seneca told Colby that he would one day establish a spiritual community in the South, and so it just happened to be Florida. And that's because in 1875, Colby traveled to Florida for his health. He had tuberculosis, and back then doctors would recommend that you go to climates that were warmer and more humid because it was easier to breathe. So he landed there and he was like, this is it. So while he was there, he bought land in Volusia County near DeLand. And it was perfect because one, Florida was great for health. It was also still largely undeveloped at the time, making land a lot more affordable. And unlike New York, where the original Cassadaga camp still exists, Florida allowed gatherings year-round because of the weather, so it was a lot easier to meet up. So Cassadaga was first established as a spiritualist camp, which was a place for teaching, healing, and spirit communication, and it basically still is that today. The town was named after Cassadaga, New York, like I said, which was the original spiritualist camp that Colby had established. And Cassadaga was never meant to be a gimmick or a tourist trap, nothing like Disney World. It was really a place for very serious psychics, mediums, spiritualists to come and gather and commune with the dead. And interestingly, Cassadaga is rooted in spiritualism, which is a 19th century religious movement. So just like you have churches and synagogues and mosques, spiritualism has its own type of churches, if you will. That's what they call it. And there are churches in Cassadaga that are basically run by this movement. It's very interesting. So what is spiritualism exactly? It's not Judeo-Christian beliefs. It's not Islamic beliefs. It's more of a new age type movement that blends Eastern and Western religions. It basically believes that life continues after physical death, which a lot of other religions do as well. But they also believe that the spirit world can communicate with the living.
So in spiritualism, we believe life continues on after a change called death. But we don't discriminate against anyone who has gone through their change called death. So you look at it as molecular structure change, kind of like a caterpillar turns to a butterfly, or water that turns to ice, turns to steam, then turns back to water. It's a molecular structure change that water goes through. So we believe as human beings, when we transition to the spirit side of life, we go through a molecular structure change called death.
And that medium serve as a bridge between the spirit world and the earthly realm, if you will. And I know, for instance, I'm Jewish, so in Judaism, basically, we're told not to reach out, and the Old Testament speaks about this, but it says that you don't want to commune with spiritualists or mediums or psychics. It's not ideal because, Kabbalistically speaking, they say that reaching out to the dead is almost like it hurts them. So they can send us signs and they can almost hear what's going on, and they're living in a separate dimension. But we are told not to communicate with them. So it's very different, obviously, than like a Judeo-Christian religion. Spiritualism was popularized during and after the Civil War when many Americans sought comfort and answers. You know, they lost a lot of loved one, friend, family, and they just needed some sort of comfort that they were looking for outside of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, etc. Spiritualism includes healing, clairvoyance, and evidence-based spirit communication. When I think of this, I kind of think of the movie The Conjuring. You're talking to the dead, you're kind of doing creepy stuff near cemeteries. The whole thing definitely creeps me out, but this is not a gimmick. Again, this is not something that people just do for fun. They take it very seriously and they truly believe that they can communicate with the dead. The religion is officially recognized, and there is a church, like I said. There's also ordained ministers that work for it and formal doctrine. So just like, you know, we have the Bible, they have their own thing for spiritualism, which I had no idea about. It's very interesting. So what is Cassadaga today? It's essentially a living spiritualist camp like it was originally intended to be. Cassadaga is still an active spiritualist community governed by the Southern Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp Meeting Association. It's a mouthful. The town includes a spiritualist church, like I said, a healing temple, psychic and medium offices, education centers, and visitors can book readings, they can take classes, they can go to the healing center, they can meditate, they can go to Sunday services. So really the entire town is centered around this whole movement. And an interesting fact is that mediums in Cassadaga must go through a certification process. So it's not just anyone with like a deck of tarot cards. You know those like psychic things you see on the side of like, or like in a strip mall? It's like psychic, like $50 will tell you your fortune. I feel like this is more legit than that. I mean, I'm not knocking them. I'm not into this stuff, but I find it's fascinating, but I don't like to mess with the dead. You know what I mean? I don't want to talk to them. I feel like when you talk to them, what if you're talking to a demon? You don't know. Maybe a spiritualist can answer and let me know what the difference is and how you know you're actually talking to a loved one, for instance. So some places you could stay or areas you can visit while you're in Cassadaga. So there's the Cassadaga Hotel, and it was built in 1928. It's allegedly haunted, surprise, especially room 22, where a spirit named Arthur is said to linger around. So lots of people have apparently run into Arthur. There's also a spirit pond, which is considered a sacred, energetic place. So people will meditate there or leave offerings. And there's also a Colby Memorial Temple, which is a central meeting space for services, workshops, and message circles. So it's almost like their church, basically. And visitors and residents report experiences like cold spots, apparitions, voices, and sudden emotional shifts. And that's not freaky. It's definitely freaky. It's definitely freaky, except I want to go. I want to check it out. Maybe stay in room 22 if I'm feeling risky, feeling adventurous. Community and controversy. So the community itself is very, very small. Only 60 people live in Cassadaga, and not surprisingly, most are practicing mediums, healers, or spiritualist clergy that work at the church. I don't know why you would live there if you weren't into this stuff. It'd be a really interesting move, but I'm not one to judge. Not all locals, like I said, are spiritualists, but the town's identity is deeply connected to the religion, so I'm assuming they probably have some sort of feeling towards it. If they absolutely hated it, I don't know why they would want to live there.
A lot of people come here for healing. That's what draws them here. Either healing through visiting a medium and having a message from a loved one, or just hands-on healing through spiritualist healing.
The balance between genuine spiritual practice and tourist curiosity, though, can be complex. Again, the town does not want this to be a tourist trap or gimmicky or like a Disney World, and so it walks a fine line between faith and healing and a destination for paranormal enthusiasts. Like ghost hunters will come there a lot, curious tourists, like I'd be one. So they just want to make sure it doesn't turn into like just a tourist trap, essentially. And it sounds like they've done a good job at doing so. So who visits and why? Kind of like I said, but visitors include people grieving the loss of loved ones. They want to look for answers, curious travelers, skeptics open to experience, spiritual seekers, ghost hunters, just the normal type of tourist who's passing by and it's curious. And services offered there are spirit readings, energy healing, so Reiki and chakra balancing, astrology, numerology, and spiritual development classes, which would be really interesting to sit in on. And many visitors describe Cassadaga as a peaceful, reflective, and welcoming place. It's not said to be very scary or creepy, although you know, there's obviously a lot of spirit activity going on there, so I'd have to go and let you know how I felt myself. So in conclusion, Cassadaga is known as a quiet but very powerful place. Again, it's not your typical tourist town. It's a living, breathing community built for the belief that life doesn't end with death. And I love that idea. I think it's very comforting. So regardless of whatever religious background you have or you partake in, I think most of us do believe that life continues after death, unless you're like a staunch atheist. So this kind of fits right in there. It's just a matter of how you communicate with the dead that's probably different, and if you should communicate with them at all. Obviously, people in Cassadaga regularly do communicate with the dead. Who they're talking to, again, I don't know. But they say they're talking to their loved ones. So whether you're there for a reading, a retreat, or just curious, you'll find something very compelling about this place. I definitely want to check it out, and they invite you to come check it out yourself. So if you have been to Cassadaga, please let me know in the comments. Also, if you are familiar with the spiritualist movement, I'd love to hear your thoughts or any information about it. And subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, share it with your ghost friends, and I'll see you guys soon.